Welcome to the Dallas Film Podcast. My name is Tony Armour. I am the Dallas Film Commissioner, and we're very excited to have a great guest with us today. Mary, why don't you introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Mary Dauterman. I'm a writer-director of the movie Booger that just played at Oak Cliff Film Festival.
Very cool. And so we're recording this on what day is it? Tuesday. And you were just in Oak Cliff this past weekend. You say you just got back to New York at midnight last night.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I guess first off, how was the festival this weekend?
It was so fun. I really had a great time. It was kind of amazing being in the Texas theater, just like that being a hangout spot because it's so great. And also I'm from Dallas, so a lot of family was able to come see my film for the first time. And a lot of cool filmmakers from New York and all over and Austin were in town. So it was just a really nice time.
That's awesome. Well, I'm sorry I missed it. I had a niece's graduation that I was mandatory that I attend in Ohio. So, I was not able to do the film festival this weekend. But Oak Cliff is a great festival, and Ashton and Brock and everybody that runs it do a great job. So I knew that you would say you had a great time. I just had to ask you officially.
Officially, great time was had.
All right, good. Well, and so since we're already talking about it, why don't you tell us a little bit about your film Booger that screened at the festival? First, give us a rundown what it's about, and where you've screened previously prior to coming to Dallas.
Yeah. Okay. So Booger is kind of a genre mashup of a film. It's a body horror comedy. My producer Lexi Tannenholt has been saying it's like The Fly meets Frances Ha, which is our fun way of describing it. But it's about a woman whose best friend dies and she loses the cat they had together. She's looking all over Brooklyn for the cat and kind of ignoring her grief. And at the same time, she might be turning into a creature herself.
Well, it sounds fun.
Yeah.
It sounds exactly like something Oak Cliff would play as well.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a really weird film. It's a bit of a gross film, and it's also a comedy about grief. So it's a lot of things at once. But we premiered at Fantasia Film Festival last summer.
Nice.
So is our kind of final festival of the tour, and we are coming out in theaters on September 13th, Friday the 13th.
Oh, that's awesome. That's awesome. Who's doing your release?
And our distributor is Dark Sky, which is a really cool horror arm of MPI. So they've been really.
That's awesome. Well, and it's so rare for smaller films to actually get theatrical releases nowadays. How did that come about? Was that something you were like, this has to be in theaters, or how did the theatrical portion of this happen?
Yeah, it's interesting because it's still all kind of in motion. We're definitely going to do a small run in New York and LA. Mm-hmm. And then I'm hoping to be able to come take the film to other places like Texas and places where I have friends and family that might be into it. But we're definitely doing a bit of a an interesting way in. Like I want to do crazy stuff like cat adoptions at the screenings. And
are you a crazy cat lady?
I'm absolutely a crazy cat lady.
Well, there is a woman in Dallas then who you have to meet who is also a self-professed crazy cat lady. You may have already met her at Oak Cliff. I don't know if she was there this past weekend, but a filmmaker that is, anyways, we'll make sure you get an introduction.
Link us up. We got to talk.
Yeah, we'll make sure. Austin, make a note of that. We're going to introduce Jess and Mary here.
Amazing.
So continue to tell me a little bit more about the theatrical run, because I love the idea of like anytime you do sort of this grassroots theatrical and just do weird and different unique things to get people to show up at theaters. It reminds me a little bit, going back in time 20 years, to Napoleon Dynamite. When Napoleon Dynamite first came out, I remember going to see that in theaters. Very different marketplace, then than it is now. But I remember seeing that in theaters, and just like the online campaign that they had and all the stuff that they did that was just really weird and outside the box, but it was a lot of fun.
Yeah, it's so fun. I mean, I can't say too much because we're literally planning it right now.
Okay.
I have a call this to do some talking about it. But when we premiered at Fantasia, we flyered the town with missing cat posters and went nuts. And I love that kind of stuff. I think that also just the idea of doing a theatrical run and making this feel communal and really interesting. What are the pieces of seeing a film that you can't experience just renting it at home?
Yeah.
So I'm obsessed with that stuff, and I think it'll be a lot of fun.
Well, and I think, having it be a genre film makes a big difference as well, because that's a very specific audience who really gravitates towards anything outside the box like that. That's a lot of fun. So I think you're going to be successful. I was looking for the trailer because I was looking at your website, but I didn't see the trailer on the site at all.
Our trailer drops tomorrow.
That is why I couldn't find it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, how did this all come about? So obviously you've been a filmmaker for a while, shorts and commercials and a little bit of everything else. So how did this particular feature happen?
Yeah, I had been making shorts for a while and doing commercial work, and I think I kind of had the seed of this idea end of 2019, and 2020 I turned down a bunch of commercial work and was like, I need to write this year. This is the year that I write. And then of course the entire world shut down, and I was like, cool timing for me to never work again. But it actually was pretty interesting because this film started off much sillier and more lighthearted. And as I was writing it, being in New York during lockdown, which was pretty intense, it became about grief and missing my friends and missing my community. And I think that you can definitely feel that in the film. It's not a COVID movie, but I think a lot of the stuff I was going through emotionally came through in the writing.
Sure.
But the film, it is kind of funny. I wrote 2 films in 2020, Booger and another film I'm now working on. That's more of a silly comedy. And Booger, when me and my producer met each other and started talking to investors, was what people were really gravitating towards. And I was a little nervous about it. It has an animal, it has prosthetics. It's not the easiest first film to make, but I also felt really excited for the challenge because this film I was able to do infuse a lot of the things I've kind of been experimenting with in my short film work and bring it to a bigger narrative. Because all my short films in the past have definitely been kind of strange and surreal and goofy and gross, and I definitely hit all of those things here. And I also had been working with my filmmaking team for a long time, my DP and my production designer and my editor. So there were a lot of things where we were like, remember when we did that in a really small scale on that weird little Adult Swim short? Well, I want to do that, but blow it up and cover a room with hair and go absolutely nuts. And it was kind of taking these building blocks of all the things we'd been experimenting with together and making it a feature, which was pretty cool.
Yeah. And how does that come about? So one of the questions that I always get, daily basically, is how do I find money for my feature film? Can you help me make my feature film? And as a film commission, that's not necessarily our job, but my background is a producer. My background is a producer as well. And so, I've had this conversation a lot with people over the years, and I try and give them, all the different kinds of advice and whatnot. But it's always good to hear from filmmakers who have gone through it and put things together. So how did that all come about for you? Because you don't have big name stars. You're like, here's a movie called Booger. Why don't you give us money for it? How does that work?
It's so crazy. I feel like, I wish that we lived in a country that had more support for the arts, so it wasn't such a who am I going to beg for money? Yeah. I feel like there's so many different ways people get their first films financed, and there's no one answer, but I'm happy to share my story. I through the short film festival circuit, actually at Maryland Film Festival, I met a friend who, Tristan Scott Burns, who is an EP on this film now. He over the course of our friendship started working for this company called Neon Heart that finances first-time female directors. And he introduced me to Rhiannon, who this is her company, and she read Booger. She really she really like felt for it. She was like, I feel like I've had similar friendships and I also love cats and there's a lot here. And so having this conversation with her, and she gave us like our first money in was just such a big boost for the project. I was like, okay, but like maybe this can really happen. And Rhiannon had just been such an amazing champion for the film all the way through. So I think she came on board. When would that have been? Probably, I think it was like towards the end of 2020. And then it took us until July 2022 to finish the funding.
Yeah.
But there were so many questions of like, should we just do it with what we have? Like, can we scale it down? But in the end, we finished out the financing. My producer, Lexi Tannenholtz, directed this really awesome short that played at South by Southwest. And she's like a networking queen. She at South by, she came back and she'd met 1220 Entertainment and Leyline Entertainment and had really good conversations with them and kind of teed me up to pitch Booger to both of those companies. Leyline, it was really crazy and intimidating because the film they had recently finished was Everything Everywhere All at Once. Like, that's a really good movie. Hi, here's my stupid little movie. But they are so amazing and supportive, and everyone in the team, I feel like almost everyone on their team had like a Texas connection, which is, I grew up in Dallas and went to UT Austin, and that was pretty special. And then I know I didn't have any like major celebrities in this film, but Grace Glowicki, the lead, had just been in Strawberry Mansion, another movie that Leyline produced, and they just were such big fans of her. She's an incredible performer and she will be famous any day, but it was really cool to be like, okay, yeah, our taste level is just overlapping in a really interesting way because you know and you support my lead actor, and you have like kind of eclectic taste. So that was a really, really exciting. I think it was like they came in and then we were finally ready to start shooting. But and then the last piece of the puzzle was Sanctuary Content, which is a commercial production company that now represents me as a director. And it just happened they were kind of Preston Lee, who owns the company, is just a big film lover, and he's like, I've been making commercials for a long time. I think I want to make movies. Do you have any scripts? And I was like, yes. So it was a crazy timing thing with a lot of it. But I think we did pick up momentum. It just kind of like the ball kept rolling and we were going to figure out how to do it no matter what. But I'm glad we had the amount of financing we were shooting for, which was still not much. We shot my apartment. We shot in my DP's apartment. We shot in Lexi's uncle's apartment, my cat's in it.
Yeah, I mean that's how you do it, right? When you're making independent films, it's like, what do we have that's not going to cost us anything? How do we make this work? And then it's great that you were able to put your target budget together because, usually for an independent film is, what's the budget? Well, the budget is what we have. So however much money we have, that's what the budget is, and we find a way to make it work. So, because like you said, there's no one way to finance a film or to find everything that you need financially, whether it's doing crowd funding campaigns or the rich uncle who wants to give you a couple of bucks or whatever it might be. So it's always completely different, it seems like.
Yeah, there were times where I was like, should I ask my dentist? Like, what do I do? But I am really lucky to have had this team. I feel like the funding your film is the roadblock a lot of people have in getting it done.
Well, and then it's always the challenge too. Once you get the first one done, you think, oh, the second one will be easier. Well, the second one's never any easier. Usually you try, the goal is to scale up in budget a little bit. It's like, okay, can we get a little bit more money for this next one, a little bit more for this next one? And you never know what happens. Like when you get your theatrical release and, you maybe generate a little buzz or whatever, that always helps too. And it sounds like you've got great partners that if things work out right on this one, that they'll come on board for the second one as well.
Yeah, that's the dream. Yeah.
Yeah. And so you grew up in Dallas and you went to UT Austin and then like right out of college, New York, or how did that work for you?
Yeah, my path is pretty weird. I went to UT Austin. I did this program called Texas Creative. That's like an advertising creative program where you make a portfolio of fake ads. And then I went from Austin to San Francisco, worked at an ad agency making banner ads for toilets. That for real is my job. And then I went out to LA and got another job that was doing more like commercial work where we were actually shooting stuff. And that's when I got on set for the first time and was like, this is pretty fun. Yeah. So being in LA, I got to go to a lot of shoots and kind of see how it all worked. And then I got recruited out to a job in New York. And I was really excited to come here because I just have so many friends from UT here, strangely, like really great community of Texans here in New York. And I've been in New York for 10 years now.
Oh, wow.
But
it's like you blink and it's gone.
Yeah. I didn't start actually pursuing directing, I guess it's probably been like 6 or 7 years now. I was really just working, thinking I would be staying in ad agencies and having a life where I was writing really funny commercials. And at a certain point, I realized I wanted to be telling my own stories and having fun that way. So I met some crew out here and made some short films and fell in love with it, and then started getting opportunities to direct commercials. So yeah, I did not go to film school, even though I should have just like walked downstairs at UT and taken some classes.
Well, you were still in the creative kind of field. Well, and it's interesting because there are so many people who go to film school and think they're going to have a job in the industry when they graduate, when in reality, you're going to have a job in the advertising industry when you graduate. You're working on commercials and all that other kind of stuff. That's literally, for Dallas, for the state of Texas, that's the business. That's the business that keeps everybody employed and feeding their families, is working on commercial stuff. And Florida, where I came from prior to Dallas Film Commission, it was the same thing there. Like, it was all commercial industry, and that's what drove the business. And then you have all these film people who are really just working on commercials because it's hard to make movies.
Just commercials are happening all the time, and movies, you're sitting waiting for financing or whatever. So
yeah, you have to. I mean, there are directors who've directed major feature films who that's what they do is commercials. That's literally how they're paying the bills between the feature films and stuff that they do. That's just the nature of the industry.
Yeah, it makes sense.
Do you have? I watched a few of your commercials on your website. Did you write any of those, or were you just directing those particular ones?
It's a mix. Like, there's sometimes I get hired to do some writing as well, and sometimes. Like I did probably this is maybe the more recent stuff I've done, but I did a commercial with Jennifer Coolidge where it was kind of like there was a concept, and then Jennifer Coolidge really wanted to brainstorm what exactly the script would be. So I was on board for that entire experience. And then the shoot itself was like heavily improv because she's a genius. So there's certain jobs where it has like, it's just a live moving object. And there's certain jobs where they're like, this has been tested a million times. They have to say exactly these words.
Yeah. Well, and it's interesting. Yeah. Especially commercial for a commercial, for any corporate entity to just allow the actor and director to be like, we're just going to make this up as we go along here and see what's funny. That's different and interesting because 99.9% of companies will not allow it. No, it's like, no, this is the script. This is our brand and our product, and this is the way it has to be. Yeah,
for sure. It was really awesome and very special.
Yeah, I watched that one earlier, the makeup one. So that one was funny. That and the IHOP commercial with the pancake recliner, and
yeah, that was very fun to make. I think they still have the pancake chair at the ad agency.
They should. You should never get rid of that because it was awesome. So now that you're kind of in motion with the release on this one, what are you doing for your next feature? You said you wrote 2 features in 2020, so you're working on that second one now.
Yeah, it's actually a Texas movie. So I wrote this film, and then I have since done some, like I did the film independent writing lab with it earlier this year. So it's kind of in surgery mode, but it's coming together. I'm really excited about it. But it's based on my time working at the Gap at Inwood Village, if you know it.
I don't, but I've only been in Dallas really about a year and a half, working here from Florida. So, but I know the Gap, yes.
Yeah, if you ever need to go to a Gap, that one is fine. But it's right by the Inwood Theater, which I love. But I worked there in high school, and it was really boring. And this movie is called 30 Grand. It's like a wish fulfillment fantasy of something actually exciting happening working there. And it's about a 17-year-old girl and her best friend at work who's in her 40s. They discover a bag of cash in the dressing room on Black Friday, and then kind of all hell breaks loose. So it's sort of a feisty thriller holiday film. Hilarity
ensues. That's awesome. Well, my first career prior to the film industry was in retail. So I started out as well, I won't to go back so far, but I literally worked in a record store. How about that? A record store in the mall in the late 80s, early 90s kind of thing, as the fresh out of high school kid. Yeah. And then years later ended up in like an athletic footwear kind of place called Athletic Attic that is no longer in business, and was a district manager there for a number of years. So the retail world is, you know what? It's funny, and I've talked about this on the podcast before. It's basically where I learned how to produce films. Was being a retail manager and district manager, because you have to manage people and you're managing budgets and you're managing all this different stuff, and it's like it's business, right? And then when you start producing films, you're like, oh, this isn't really that much different, frankly.
Yeah, I mean, in retail, it's every personality type you can imagine you have to manage.
Yeah. And then the people who come in the store.
Yeah.
So you said it was super boring working at the Gap. You've got to have one like interesting story as like a 17-year-old in high school in the Gap in Dallas. Come on.
I mean, the most exciting thing that happened was that sometimes people would steal stuff and I just kind of watch them. And I was like, no. Because when they explained the employee discount and like all of I was like, wait, Gap is making whatever 70% markup on all this stuff. My mind is blown. Like, this is crazy. These clothes are worthless to them. So it felt really, rebellious to just let someone walk off with
them. Not that we need to share retail stories, but I'm going to anyways. My first job for this Athletic Attic, I got hired. I was in Ocala, Florida at the time, and somebody decided to use the dressing room as a bathroom instead of a dressing room, which is really great. I did not have to clean it up, which was good. That was the store manager, because no one in the store would be like, "You're the manager. We're not doing it. This is your job." And he I don't know if graciously, but he took care of it. And I did break up a fight once. Random teenagers, and this is when I had moved to Clearwater and I was managing a store in Clearwater. Like some teenagers like came into the store and then they started fighting, and then I had to like tear them apart and throw them out of the store or whatever. So,
that is pretty exciting.
The excitement of retail. Other than that, yeah, nothing too exciting. Fairly boring world. But back to the movie world. Are you you're in the financing stages now for 30 Grand? That's the name you said, right?
Yeah, the financing and casting is kind of the next step. And I think we'll be starting to do that this summer.
And so, shooting in Dallas?
Shoot in Dallas. It's funny because it's Black Friday, but I'm like, Dallas weather is so unpredictable. It's almost like we can shoot it any time of year, except the summer. Right.
Now, do you envision, obviously, getting permission from the Gap, or how are you going to handle the Gap aspect of that?
Yeah. It's my dream that they just love this and let us do it.
Because why wouldn't you, right? You're not necessarily saying anything bad about the Gap, you know? Somebody left 30 grand in the dressing room.
Yeah, it'll be just like Barbie movie except Gap. So
now, is this a period piece, or does it take place now?
It takes place in 2005. So it's a specific period.
Yeah, no, that's fun. That makes it more fun. And planning on building the store inside a studio, like a sound stage, because that would obviously give you a lot more flexibility than trying to shoot in an actual Gap, probably.
Yeah, that's also what my dream would be, because there's a lot of crazy crowd scenes and choreography and stuff. I think it would just be really great to have control over the space.
Yeah.
And there's walls or not walls and that kind of thing.
I don't know if there's a closed down mall anywhere around Austin. Austin could look, maybe somewhere in Texas. There's got to be a mall that's like just shuttered somewhere, right? You would think.
They just turned, I think they just turned Grapevine Mills into a Meow Wolf. Have you heard about this?
A Meow Wolf.
Oh, Meow Wolf. Do you know this experience?
I do not. I am unfamiliar with Meow Wolf. Enlighten me.
It's I think it started in like middle nowhere Arizona or something, but it's this like artist collective, and they take over dead weird spaces and turn them into kind of a walkthrough theme park adventure thing.
Okay.
And there's one, I'm trying to remember where it is. Maybe it's Colorado. There's one that's like a haunted supermarket or something, and the one that they just opened in Grapevine Mills, I think, is like it's like the Dead Mall is the theme of it, but it's kind of like a very Instagrammable.
Right. Is it like a temporary pop-up or something that they will rotate through to different sorts of artistic whatever?
I think it's going to live at this Dead Mall because they like all of the locations they have established still exist. Huh. So I think there's like 5 or 6 of them in the US now.
Okay. That's sufficiently cool.
Yeah.
Well, I'm sure. Have you heard that Dallas is getting a Netflix house? Are you familiar with this?
Is that going to be a theater, or how is that going to work?
No, this is like think Netflix trying to be Disney, but not Disney, right? Like, Disney has their theme parks. So the Netflix house is going to be a huge space. And I'm just describing from what I've read, basically, because it doesn't exist yet. There's only going to be 2 in the country, and one of them is going to be in Dallas. And it's going to be whatever Netflix brands that are super popular, you can go in and interact with them, and it'll be an interactive type of entertainment experience. Whatever that means, I don't know. I'm sure, and it's supposed to be big too. It's not like a little space. Like, it's going to be really large. And so Netflix is essentially, it's their way of kind of dipping their toe into sort of that weird theme park space, Netflix world, Netflix house. I guess it's a house because it can't be Disney World. It's not a whole world. It's just a house. They're growing, they'll see where it goes from there.
Sounds like a mega mansion, but sure. House.
Yeah, I know. I mean, so I guess we'll see what that ends up being. But if you want to shoot in Dallas, we do have some great sound stages that are being refurbished that'll be online in November. And so if you're shooting probably next year, you said something like that.
Yeah, I think maybe next spring or something. Yeah.
Well, we'll have some sound stages here.
We'll email. Yeah.
Yes. We'll see what we can do to get this thing going.
Yeah, that's amazing.
And so are you done with the festival run for Booger then? Was it Oak Cliff the last one?
Yeah, I think it might be playing somewhere in Europe that I'm not going, but this was the last festival I'm attending, and I think it was like the perfect, wonderful fest to attend. So I had a really good time.
That's a good way. That's a good way to close it out. Back to the hometown, Oak Cliff Film Festival, and you're like, and now I'm done. Yeah.
It was interesting. My parents brought all of their friends they play pickleball with.
So your parents' friends, what was the polite conversation after they watched Booger? Like, what did they have to say?
No, I think this movie is probably a bit out of most of their comfort zones.
Yeah.
My dad's best friend, my godfather, he's a freak and he loved it. He said his favorite movie is Black Swan, so he was really into it.
Okay.
So that was pretty cool. Love Howard. But I mean, everyone seemed to really enjoy it. And I think the takeaway from that crew was a little bit more about there's a focus on a mother character that is more their age, and I think that was the part of the film that they gravitated towards.
Right, like what can we have to find something to identify with in this film? Okay, we'll just stick with Mom. I can identify with her and make it through.
Yeah, who is the actor is Marsha DeBonis, who's incredible. So I really liked working with her too, and hope to work with her again. But yeah, one of my parents' friends was like, "How did you get Marsha DeBonis?"
Oh, really?
What? a super fan.
Yeah, that's fun. That's really cool. That's good. I'm glad. And did you screen it at the Texas, upstairs or downstairs?
We screened at the Bishop Arts Center, which was a little down. Yeah.
Yeah. That's awesome.
Which is a really cool space. Yeah.
And what else? So you got any commercials lined up you're working on coming up?
I'm pitching. I'm always pitching. It's just like pitch on the commercials, pitch on the next one, see what happens. One thing that's really fun for Booger, we are going to make a music video for the Pina Colada song.
Oh, cool.
So that's the next thing I know I'm shooting. And I'm really excited about that.
Now that will be very cool. I'm looking forward to seeing your spin on a music video for the Pina Colada song. I'm sure is there a music video that exists for that? I haven't ever looked to see.
It's kind of, what I could find seems sort of like a live performance more than a music video. I don't know when music videos became the thing.
Because that song is probably late 70s, right? I think so. And really it was early 80s MTV generation, my generation, dating myself. That was the music video age when that really took off. And music videos actually used to be super cool. Like they would go all out and do crazy stories and have a lot of fun with them when they first started, and then people got lazy and just started performing in front of a camera with some lights blinking and stuff, kind of thing.
Snooze.
And after so when you're pitching commercials, so do the agent, because I know from working with so many different agencies, a lot of times they'll send they'll already have their storyboards done for like what they want the commercial to be. Are they sending you boards and then you're looking at it and pitching, or is it really just concept and then pitching based off concept?
Yeah, it's funny. They still call it boards, but I'll get more of like a PDF with the written script and some swipe.
Yeah.
More so. And then normally I do my storyboards when we're going into production, but I have pitched on stuff where they have a full animatic already made. So they have creepy animation because they test that stuff and want to make sure it works. But I've been on the other end of it as an art director too. So I kind of understand what I'm looking at, but it's a big array of things. And you understand when you get something like an animatic, you're like, oh, these people have been working on this for at least like a year and a half, and now they're finally shooting it. So now they're either really tired of this project or like really relieved they're finally getting to do it.
Like they've tested the hell out of it. Like, can we just make the commercial for God's sakes?
Yeah.
Yeah. And you know what? I would be remiss if during this conversation I did not ask you about the Tortilla Towel.
Oh, wow. Yeah. I have one in my office somewhere.
So first, for the audience that's listening, tell us what the Tortilla Towel is.
Yeah. Okay. So the Tortilla Towel is a circular blanket that looks like a big tortilla, and you can wrap yourself in it to feel like a burrito or whatever. My friend Yiping Chang is a genius. She's an art director, and we were hanging out at a park in Brooklyn, and someone had a hamburger towel, and she was like, "This would make so much more sense as a tortilla." And I was like, "We have to make this." So Yiping designed it. I made a video for it. We made, I think we got 20 towels manufactured from China, and we made this funny video with them, and then we're just going to give the towels to friends.
Yeah.
But we made a website, and we were like, we'll just add like an option to buy almost as a joke, see if it happens. And we got a crazy amount of orders, like crazy orders. And then on top of that, the video that we made got picked up by CNN and played on all of their like local newscasts for, I think it was 4th of July weekend. So we got a lot of insane press coverage for something we kind of made as a joke, and then we quickly had to figure out how to get thousands.
How are we going to scale up and make all these towels? Yeah, because the video is great. It's super simple, and I'm assuming your friend that I'm saying. She's the actress, yeah. And it was so simple and so easy. For those that are listening, go look up the Tortilla Towel video. She's literally just laying in the towel and describing how it can be folded as a burrito or as a taco or as a quesadilla or whatever. And it was fun and funny. And I could see where it could have been 5 people watched it and nobody ever saw it again, or 5 million people watched it and loved it. And that's you ended up with the second option, essentially.
Yeah, it was so bizarre. There, like I was trying. I have gotten copies of some of the newscasts, but there were some newscasters in like West Texas that one of the reporters fell out of their chair laughing at the video, and I was like, okay, we have a success here. But yeah, it's fun. It's like the first thing I ever edited, honestly. So that's where my filmmaking began.
with the Tortilla Towel. And is the Tortilla Towel still available? Like if you went to Amazon, can you find, is it being made on demand now, so that like if you just order at Amazon, makes it and ships it? Or
well, I guess that was the problem with manufacturing it in China. Yiping did another run of the towels that I think she's finally has sold all of them, but we manufactured them in China and quickly got copycats. There's like a burrito blanket, there's all this stuff. We didn't copyright it or do anything like that. And then last year, so many people texted me because there was like a Secret Santa SNL sketch where they had a burrito blanket. And I was like, if they'd said Tortilla Towel. Yeah, that's our big competition.
The burrito blanket is huge competition with the Tortilla Towel. So for any of you people out there listening, boycott the burrito blanket and only take on the Tortilla Towel. I was trying to do alliteratives with T's and B's there, but I messed it up. So that's all right. Well,
it's all the original.
The original. So if only you'd have known, you could have. It doesn't matter. Once you make something in China, they copy everything, and just it's all over, calling it whatever people want to call it.
Yeah, but we had a really fun run, and it was a really, really crazy summer. We wrapped up like burritos before we mailed them out.
It sounds awesome. And before we wrap up, I wanted to ask you about your books that you write as well. Your not children's novels, because those look very cool.
Yeah, I'm like, can you still buy them? This was also before I was a filmmaker. I feel like I did a lot of little projects that were kind of jokes online. And the first project was making illustrations of children's books, but making them kind of like dirty and rated R. Like instead of Little House on the Prairie, it was Little Whorehouse on the Prairie, that kind of thing. And this was like a blog that I ran with my friend Peter Antosh, and that got picked up by BuzzFeed and a few other places. And we were like, maybe it's a book. And we had a friend who was a literary agent who helped us navigate that whole world. And it was really crazy. It was a very silly idea. And then it ended up being a book that was sold at like Urban Outfitters.
That's awesome.
And then off of that, an editor approached me with this concept, like the Richard Scarry books. What do people are the Richard Scarry books like Busy Town, where all of the little critters have jobs. And I brought on my friend Chelsea Marshall, who is a really funny, hilarious writer. And we made kind of like the millennial version of that. So everyone's jobs were extremely like media centric and the kinds of jobs we had in
content creator.
Yeah. So it has a narrative, but it also has all of the kind of little jokes you can look at all the way through the pages.
Yeah.
And working on that book, I got tennis elbow from drawing. So that was pretty intense. Physically, bizarrely. So that was the last book I've illustrated, but since then I storyboard all of my films. So the illustration portion is definitely in my brain. Maybe one day I'll do another book, but they're a lot of fun, but a lot of work. Yeah.
Did you have a background as an artist as well, prior to movies and everything else?
I feel like I'm like I have a lot of friends like me where it's like when we were kids that we were the one in class, everyone was like, will you draw me this? Or like, that you can draw. So I was pretty encouraged that way. And then my family was always very encouraging of me and my sister both to do art classes and spend time doing that. But they were not psyched about like the idea of art school. So me and my sister got pretty practical degrees. But yeah, just like drawing and crafting and making stuff has always been a part of my life. And yeah, I was
Well,
able
it sounds like you've basically taken all of that and been meshing it into, you know, your films. When you're making films, you're taking that artistic sensibility and the writing and sort of the visual eye that you have and putting it all together.
Yeah, it's a film is the space where all of the things run into each other.
Yeah.
So that's where I ended up.
That's awesome. Well, before we wrap up, anything else you want to talk about? Any future projects besides 30 grand? Anything else before we wrap up the podcast for today?
Yeah, I hope, I mean, if anyone listening wants to finance 30 grand, hit me up. But in the meantime, Booger is going to be out September 13th, Friday the 13th. So keep an eye on that. And I'll send you our trailer when it's out so you guys can check it out too. And you should adopt a cat if you're thinking about it. I'll just plug cats.
Absolutely. Anybody that needs to adopt a cat, go right ahead and do it. And we'll talk offline about seeing if we can shoot 30 grand in Dallas. That would be fun.
Amazing. Dream come true.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Mary, for being on the podcast today. Thanks, everybody, for listening. And I hope you tune in next week. I don't know why I always say tune in. It's like the old school radio thing, but I guess... What else?
Yeah.
What else? I don't have a catch line. I need a catch line at the end of the podcast. You know, stay
cool, Dallas.
Stay cool, Dallas. Yeah.
Is it like at 100 today?
Yeah, around 100. Everybody's always like, "Is it hotter in Florida or Texas?" I'm like, "Does it matter?" I mean,
it's a different kind of hot.
Is it 100 or is it 92 and 90% humidity? It's hot, like, you know. So, all right. Anyways, stop listening. This podcast is over. Go away. Go on with the rest of your day. Thanks for listening.